Hello, my name is Phil Black, and I am the executive director and founder of the Manhood Project, which is a male mentoring and coaching organization that works with young men in character building, communication skills, and self development. I'm also a certified adult and youth strategies coach. I've earned two certifications, one from Spencer Institute around a science-based strategy called hemispheric integration, and another research-based certification with Youth Coaching Institute out of Dallas, Texas, which is around a strategy called acceptance commitment therapy. And I've been working in this field now for several years. I began informally as far back as 2009 as a volunteer youth development coach or athletic coach even, working with Think Detroit PAL. I've worked with several organizations, including City Year LLC, which is an organization around tutoring and near-peer mentorship with students. And as recent as of right now, in addition to my work with the Manhood Project, I am a lead trainer and have been for the past 2 years with an organization called PAIR, which stands for Partnering in Education and Resilience. And it's a partnership with Harvard Medical School and McLean Hospital, where we work with students in trauma and resilience. And so I have a pretty extensive background and a lot of insight into youth development and human development in general. And so this training is the first of a number of trainings that I plan to create to help youth and just individuals in general in maximizing their personal opportunities. And so with that, I want to just jump right in and talk about why this particular training, Making the Grade, understanding your grades and how to maximize your effort, how that came about and why I decided to do it. So the short of it is, my personal experience in not only working with youth, but just my experience as an individual, some of the challenges that I had coming up in school, my grades fluctuated a lot. I was a student athlete, and a lot of times, I would do just enough to get by. And I started to develop this concept or this idea of someone, basically giving me a particular grade. I always thought that if I knew that if I did, my assignments or did fairly well on an exam, that I would get a decent grade in my mind. Getting again a decent grade, or I could get in A. My teacher would give that to me if I did fairly well. But I didn't really understand exactly how those grades were created and how I actually earned my grade based on what was available. And I didn't get that concept until well into my college years. When I really began to pay attention and break it down. And so I wanted to create this training because I hear a lot of that same language from the young men and just students in general that I work with, and recognizing that they just don't have a full understanding of how their grades are calculated, and more importantly, ways to maximize the opportunity that's available to them. So I've created this training to help get a deeper understanding of that. And so with that being said, what we want to look at first is just to basically understand that there are many factors that make up your overall grade for any particular class. There's no magic to it, and no grade is just simply a whole grade in itself, meaning you go to class and your teacher, based on you being in that class, whether they like you, dislike you, what have you, they just simply just give you a grade, an arbitrary grade based on your work. There are many factors that create your grade, and they vary. But for this particular training, we're going to look at some common factors for most classes, whether it's math, science, social studies, any class that you may take, you'll have some pretty common factors that will create your overall grade. And that first one is your attendance, showing up to class, being there on time, and being in the room is the first factor for most of your classes. Now, understanding that, that attendance is, while it's a small piece, it is a pretty important piece, because if you're not there, you can't really get a grade, right? So understand that attendance. Next is participation. Participating in the class usually it doesn't hold a lot of weight, but it does hold some weight. Do you raise your hand? Do you ask questions? Are you participating in conversations? Are you participating overall? That is a factor. Classwork is a factor in your grades. Are you completing assignments that, or participating in group discussions and turning in your classwork? That determines what it takes. That is a small piece of your grade as well. Homework, of course, is part of your grade. Quizzes. Sometimes teachers will give quizzes throughout your class time. Let's say if classes meets 8 weeks, within that period of time, there may be 2 to 4 quizzes that you'll take based on the information that's been covered during that particular section or up to that point. Midterms exams are very common. Halfway through the class or the course that you take, you'll take a exam that will be based on all of the information up to that point. And then finally, you'll have a final exam where sometimes this is basically an assessment of your overall learning for that entire course. And so everything that you've covered could be placed on this final exam, and that becomes a factor in your overall grade. So understanding this, that there are multiple factors. The first thing, going back to that original point that I made about earning your grade versus someone giving you your grade, understand that all grades are calculated the same. Every last one. Every student that comes into class, they are being measured by whatever factors that teacher uses to create the grade. So there is no giving them grades. We all go in with the same opportunity. And so, the question becomes, well, how do we miss the mark at times? Well, there are a number of reasons why people miss the mark in the grades, whether it's personal challenges, not fully understanding the information, and a lot of different things that go into possibly not receiving or earning the grade that you set out to earn. But what I've found is that a lot of times there's a misunderstanding of the concepts of having points available and the potential impact of each individual grade factor, because there's a difference between having points available versus the amount of points that are earned in a class or in a particular, within a particular section of that class. And here's what I mean. Each factor, like we went over, whether it's attendance, participation, classwork, homework, each factor is given a point value. One example, these values will change again depending on your class, and so you'll of course have to get the specific points for the class that you're looking to gain understanding from. But whenever you take a course, you'll have to break this down according to what that teacher uses to create their grade. But we're going to use a basic example with basic numbers here. So let's just say for attendance, 2, because we'll place a point value of 2 here because it's usually a very small percentage of your grade, but it is a factor. Participation is the same, not usually a huge chunk of your grade, but it definitely plays a part. So we'll give 3 points here. Classwork 10, homework 10, quizzes 20, midterm 25, and your final exam being 30% of your grade, because those tend to be weighted a lot heavier than the others. And so in this example, using just basic numbers, basic math, we have 100 points available for this particular class. In some court cases, you'll have 500 points available. Some teachers may give as many as 1,000 points available, but understand that 1,000 points is what's available and what makes up your overall grade or potential grade in the class. And so using these numbers, basically looking at 100 points being the same as 100% of your grade. And so you take a look at this graph. Here you'll see just visually how this weight or each particular factor can be either a small part or even a very large part of your overall grade. And so again, we're talking about 100 points available to you within that particular class. So based on that, again, keep in mind, everyone has the same opportunity to earn an A or 100% going into the course. Whether they earn that A or they earn 100% is based on their efforts and how they strategize and go about engaging in the class. And so wonder, so what happens, right? So how do you potentially lose, or what do I mean by maximizing your points? Well, first, let's take a look at how those points are really broken down. Let's take, for example, your classwork, which is one factor. There are 10 points available for classwork. Using simple math and simple assignments, let's just say, for example, you have 5 assignments, classroom assignments, for this particular class, each one carrying 2 points each. Well, if you complete and turn in all 5 assignments, of course, you will get the 10 points that are available. But let's say you miss one of those assignments. Well, instead of getting the 10 points, you earned 8 of the 10 points that were available. Not a lot, but definitely 10 points missing. Why is that important? Well, so when you factor that in, let's say the 2 points for attendance that's available, 3 points for participation. Your classwork, you got 8 out of the 10, homework 10, quizzes 20, midterm 25, and final 30. Well, instead of getting 100 points or 100%, you just got 98 because you missed that one assignment, right? That one assignment. But keep in mind, again, available. You earn that if you earned all points in all other areas, right? That's what you can look to get, because and so in looking at that and plugging it into an actual grading scale, a common grading scale would be 91 to 100 equals an A, 81 to 90 equals a B, 70 to 80 equals a C, 61 to 69 is a D, and F is 60 or below. That being said, in that last example, if you were to earn 98 points or 98%, you get an A. But again, keeping in mind, to get that A, you would have had to have earned every point in every other category. So why am I telling you this? Okay, get to the point, coach. What's the deal? Well, the point is earning an F, and this is the thing that a lot of the young men that I work with miss, is that earning an F is easy if you are not paying attention, okay? And that's pretty easy to do. Let's just say, for example, your homework, right? We looked at classwork. Homework tends to be a bit of a challenge. If we use that example of 10 points being available for your homework, let's just say you don't do your homework, and it happens, right? You never turned in one of your assignments and you didn't get any points for homework. Well, guess what? Since you didn't earn any points in your homework, instead of having 100 points available to you, you only have 90 points available to you now. So at best, you can hope to earn is a B if you are perfect in every other area, because you completely missed out on 10 of the 100 points that are available through your homework. This happens a lot, right? I'll give you another example. Let's talk about the final exam and how that can really impact. If you go back to that pie graph and we were to look at that, remember, 30 points is a pretty big chunk of your overall grade if that's the way that it is weighted. So let's just say you did everything in the class right, but you completely bombed on the final. Well, at best you can hope to do is 70 or get a C in the class because you failed that final exam. That's pretty significant, right? But you have to think, hey, that's usually not how it works or how it happens. You don't just simply go into a class and attend every day, participate all the time, do all of the class work, do all of your homework, and do well in your quiz and your midterm and just completely bomb out. That's not how you usually get an F. What tends to happen and how people's grades are usually diminished is you lose points in different areas and you don't pay attention to where you're losing the points. So for example, here, let's just say you do attend class, but you didn't get full value for your attendance and you got 1 out of 2 points. You participate regularly, but not enough to get all your points there, and you only got 2. And you did most of your classwork, so you got 7 points there. But you didn't do all of your homework. You only turned in, let's say, half. Get 5 points. Because you were somewhat consistent, you did well on the quizzes. You did, fairly well on the midterm, and you did pretty good on the final. Well, that comes up to 75 points or 75% just in taking those little small chunks away, which means you just earned a C. That's a C effort. But here's what I've run into often and what it usually happens. A lot of the young men that I work with, unfortunately, don't really attend classes if they don't have to, right? A lot of times, especially my college guys, they'll do like I used to do. You look at the syllabus and you see you can miss as many as 3 classes and still get all of your points. If you miss more than 3, then that's when you lose those points. So what you tend to do is, hey, you miss your 3 early on in the class, early on in the semester, and now you kind of forced to be in class because, hey, if you miss any more, you don't get any points. But then something actually happens and you're not able to make it to class, so you missed out and you don't get that attendance. Then you don't really participate either. You're just kind of there, you take some notes and, you really just kind of showing up, all right? Not really completing the class assignments. You fairly engaged because you were never really there in the first place, right? And so you don't participate too much because you don't want to ask questions, sound dumb, or, your peers know that you haven't been to class, so they're not really trying to help you. And so you miss out on that. So when you get time for doing your homework, you don't really do that. You get caught up playing video games or hanging out with your buddies and things like that, and it's really not all that important. So you figure, hey, you know what, I'll make up for it on the quizzes. And so you do okay on the quizzes, but not as well as you could have. Midterm rolls around, you do okay in your mind. Hey, I did pretty decent on the midterm, so I should be good. And then the final comes around, and you do fairly decent on the final. So in your mind, you're like, man, I did pretty straight on the final exam. I should be good, right? Final 30 points, I got 20 out of 30. That ain't bad. It ain't horrible. Midterms, 25 available. I got 18 of those. I should be straight, right? Do the math. That's a 57. You just got an F. And in your mind, you're like, how? I did well on all my exams. I should have at least passed. Well, this is how. You missed out here. Maximizing your grades and maximizing your opportunity is really learning how to be consistent in the little things. Because if you're attending classes regularly and you force yourself to participate, that means you are engaging in the learning process and you're gaining more information. Your classwork, with you being there and participating, you're more likely to do your classroom assignments and get those done. And if you're doing the classwork, then it makes it a lot easier for you when you're doing your homework. When you're doing your homework, it improves your chances of doing well on your quizzes and all the other exams because you're fully engaged and you're fully invested. So now when you take a look at the scenario, by maximizing your attendance, participating in the class, completing your classroom assignments, completing your homework assignment, you can still do decent on the quizzes, right? 16 out of 20. You can do fairly well on the midterm, 20 out of 25. Final exam, you don't have to ace it, but you got 25 out of 30. Talking about an 86. That's a B. That's a B. Just by completing the little things, you just jumped from an F to a B. Here I would ask for questions. And if there were no questions, we'll move into takeaways. And really the big takeaway that I want for people when they view this training is to understand that you have to be in class in order to maximize your opportunity, first and foremost. When you get to class, you got to learn to participate. You may not be an extroverted person. It may be a little bit, tougher. Sometimes it can be intimidating being in class. You don't know people, especially, if, you're completely new to the environment. I get it. Do little smaller things to kind of help improve, just your overall feeling about that situation. Do small things, like speaking to people individually outside of class, going to visit your professor or your teacher on their prep or their office hours. These types of things show that you're interested, you're engaged, and that you want to learn. And the more conversations you have with individuals, makes it a lot easier when you look to have conversations in front of the group as a whole, because you're no longer talking to a room full of strangers. You have individuals in there who you are comfortable with. But in order to get to that space, you have to get to class, number one, and you have to participate in the classroom. All of that puts you in a much better position to maximize your grade, and it no longer in your own mind or just in your own personal reality and perception is about what your professor or your teacher is giving you. It's about what you're earning. What are you actually taking control of, and how are you putting yourself in the best position possible? You contribute to it. We contribute to our own grades. We take control of it. So if we're not showing up to class, you can best believe you're not going to get the opportunities that that are best available to you because you're not present, right? It's a small piece of the puzzle, but it's a major factor in the whole game. I hope this has helped you, and I really look forward to the feedback.